Every now and then you get these amazing words, both in Hebrew and English, where the word means what it means, but it means also the opposite of what it means. Take the word host, for example. If you are hosting a party, you are welcoming people. You are providing a certain degree of comfort. You are bringing folks in. What about, though, if there's the outbreak of hostilities? Or Adonai Tzvaot, the Lord of hosts, as it gets translated. They're not talking about hosting the party in that one. That's like God of the army, basically. And so you have this funny word here, host, which means two different things, but it comes out of the same place of meaning, both the place of receiving and welcoming and protecting, but also a place of, well, maybe that protecting and that receiving and welcoming also requires a degree of strength, power, force. And so you wind up having the same word to host the party and the outbreak of hostilities, the Lord of hosts, the heavenly host. There's another one of those this week that I was spending some time on this morning in Shabbat Shkalim. I'm on 523 here if you want to follow along. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor ki tisa et rosh b'nei Yisrael lifkudehem v'natnu ish kofer nafsho ladonai bifkod otam. Ish kofer. That's a curious one. What do y'all know about that word with the root kofer? Kaf, pe, resh. What do you know about that word? Kapara. Thank you. Whoever just said that. Kapara. Kapara with the Yiddish pronunciation. You want to translate it? I'll translate it. Expiation or atonement, as in Yom Kippur. Yom HaKippurim, the Day of Atonements and Expiation. If you look at it, it says, in the English, each shall pay the Lord a ransom for himself upon being enrolled. You could also translate that, which my JPS Academic Torah Commentary did, as a cover charge. It's effectively a poll tax, but it's saying they're all covered, is what it's doing there. Kapara. From that same word, expiation, atonement is saying, hey, you're covered. We got you. We got your back. It's that same covering kind of semantic meaning. Now, there's a funny thing about this census we have here. Did you know that the census is really dangerous? Is really scary? Oh, I heard somebody say yes over there. Why is the census scary? This is a whole ritual in which Lord speaks to Moses, God speaks to the people, speaks to Moses, speaking to the people to take a census of the Israelites, and each one pays a half shekel to sort of as their buy-in to say, okay, this is who the people is. It's a census. What's the big deal? You fill the thing out and send it back in the postal service, right? No. Why is the census dangerous? Yeah, go ahead, David.
Because technically speaking, directly counting Jews is actually forbidden biblically, and actually later in the Tanakh, we read that King David, he actually created a census, and when he did that, a lot of people got very sick and died because he wasn't supposed to do that.
Okay, so maybe there's a problem with counting Jews. We're going to hold that as a possibility here as well. I'm actually, when I talk about the danger of census, I'm not talking about purely Jews here. I'm talking about the endeavor, human-wise, of census. Yeah, go ahead, Havala.
I thought it also had something to do with the army.
Yes, it does. It has to do. Does it have something to do with the army? Is what Havala said. Absolutely right. This is being done for purposes of conscription, to see who you can deploy in this sense. One other reason the census is tricky, and this, yeah, go ahead, Mitch.
It's whom you'll exclude.
Yes, it is. Say more.
So when you think about you're selecting people who are quote unquote meet your criteria, you are by definition excluding, depending on who's doing the excluding, all of those people who don't meet that definition, however strict it might be.
Okay. For those who couldn't hear, Mitch is saying there's danger in the census because, so if you have the army piece about who you might be able to draft, conscript into your forces, but you also have this concern around who is getting omitted from the census, who is left out of it. I'm going to offer one more possibility as well while we're on it. Friends, did you know that Lebanon, the country, has not conducted a census since 1932? Lebanon has not conducted a census since 1932. Why? Why do you suppose that is? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a guess, they don't want to count the Palestinians.
Don't want to count the Palestinians. That's a possibility. Vered?
Because the Christians who are scared that people would know how minority are among the others.
Vered. So I'm going to loop those two answers in together, but in particular, Vered's piece. There are a number of different minorities that are all existing in a very delicate power-sharing agreement, and nobody quite wants the data in hand to see who is the majority and who's the minority. Because if you have information about who the majority is and who the minority is, you could do terrible things with that. See under the Lebanese Civil War from 1975, 1985, 1990, etc. That information can be used to do really dangerous and terrible things.
To know where to find you.
To know where to find you. What's your address? How many people are at that address? Of what religious minority might they be? Are they Druze? Are they Christian? Or are they Sunni? Are they Shiite Muslim? I'm going over the Lebanese ethnic and religious groups in particular, but you get the danger, you get the idea, particularly if these different groups have different militias and are involved in street fighting, about why it might be dangerous to say, oh, okay, here's the population of this group or that group or another. There's a second meaning of kofar here, and this is an interesting one. In the Torah, you have all of this that it's derived from ancient Aramaean sources talking about covering. And that's where the expiation, the atonement comes from. You're covered. There is another more contemporary definition of that word, and that one you won't find in a Torah dictionary, but you will find it in a Talmudic dictionary. What is the other definition of kaf, pei, resh? David, you know this one?
Would it be possibly heretic?
That's right. A heretic. Heresy. The apostate. Kapara is atonement. Kfirah is heresy, apostasy. Somehow, between the time of the Torah to the time of Talmud, we've found another definition for that word that includes covering up to mean rejection, denouncement of the truth, of holiness, to pose a danger to the body politic. That to me is really striking. Just like the word host, where you could host the party or you could be the lord of hosts. Now suddenly we have, okay, kapara, kofar, the one who is covered by paying their, whatever little half shekel so that they know they're enlisted. Or you could have the heretic, the one who does wrong in point of fact. And that's looped into the same word. What's the outcome of this? If we're looking at identity and we're looking at the half shekel as representing people, there is a question here at work about who is involved, who is counted, who is not, and potentially there is enormous danger in how you count them, who you include and who you do not. I'm going to go in a very contemporary direction with this. Specifically, if you're trying to think about who is included and who is not, this has really big implications for democracy and who gets counted and who is not, and what kind of rights do you have if you are not in a majority. Alexis de Tocqueville was writing on the American Democratic Project in the 1800s. He went out on a limb and said, actually, democracy doesn't actually work. It's going to fall apart. He foresaw the Civil War and he foresaw the Soviet Union in that clash. But what he says is that basically anytime you have power going to a majority group, ultimately somebody is going to use that power against a minority group. That it's almost an inevitability to the nature of majoritarian politics. About a century later, the political theorist Robert Dahl said, well, here's a corrective to it, okay? If you do whatever the will is of the majority, you might be able to get away with that within a democratic context, but it isn't right. It isn't just. And it will, in fact, lead to an erosion of the exact same democratic ideals and values you may profess to hold. In other words, is it doable? Sure. Should you do it? That's dangerous. Dahl brings in justice, and Dahl brings in this idea that the right use of power within a democratic structure is to care for those who may be minorities, who maybe don't have all of the power, who don't have the entire hand dealt to them. Because in a representative democracy, you can get to models of the thing which are antithetical to the Jeffersonian ideal of representing and taking care of people. You can actually use this thing as a tool to hurt people, just like any other form of government. Shabbat Shkalim. We're having all of this money getting turned in, but really this is an expression of power. This is an expression of who's there and how they may deploy into this space, both in a martial way, but we're going to see this almost as an Israelite civil war under Shoftim, when different tribes are going to be ascendant and other groups are not, and sort of this question of how it is you care for people who may not have all the guns in the same way becomes really, really important. When we participate in politics, and when I say politics, I'm not using a four-letter word. I'm talking about the process by which we turn values into legislation. Are we using it to cover people and to atone for the things we have gotten wrong? Is it that kind of kapara? Or do we engage in kafira? Kind of heresy and the oppression and the destruction of people who are weaker because we can. The answer to that has pretty big, significant implications, and I'm feeling that as a quandary about what does democracy even mean against the backdrop of this week in current events in ways that keep rattling around and gnawing at my soul and keeping me up at night, and what does it mean to take care of people who are not the majoritarian, and what is in fact the nature of the tyranny of the majority as outlined by de Tocqueville. This is hard stuff. This is hard stuff, and it's dangerous, and it has pretty major implications for the world that we live in. So I want to offer Kaf, Pei, Reish. Excuse me?
Please, I wanted you to finish, that's all I was saying.
Finish.
No.
Sure, I can finish.
I want to hear what you have to say, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm going to finish. Thank you for the invitation.
You know that that's not what I said.
I know. I'm just playing. It like, at a certain point, we've made the point. I have made the point. Kaf, Pei, Reish. Is it cover? Is it taking care? Is it atonement? Or is it something nastier? It's interesting that the word gets inverted by the time of the Talmud, whereas in the Torah it's far more innocuous. Thinking about the way that we show up and what kind of kofar we may be, what kind of kapara or kafira we engage in. What a fantastic question for this week. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to move into Musaf at 155.